Anthropic dropped Claude Super Bowl ads today, and I told Jiya, we need to talk about this like immediately. Because it's so topical and I think it's really going to go viral the rest of the week. So Anthropic spent the 7 to 8 million to basically announce what they're not going to do, which is not have ads on their product. The one caveat is that they did include in their blog that should we need to revisit this approach, we'll be transparent about our reasons. I'll talk about that a little bit more later. But basically they launched 4 ads in which they have a person that's like talking to an AI, asking a question, and then they just sneak in like an ad. One of my favorite ones was the guy asking for the fitness plan, which is a huge riff off the ChatGPT ad that launched, a few months ago. And then you have the, AI ask the guy, like, give me your height and weight, so I can, do a custom plan for you. And so he gives him his height and weight. And then the ad is like, put in some like inserts into your shoes because every inch counts. So it was like one of those like insidious ways of how AI asks for our information, our personal information, and then uses that to give you an ad. I thought it was like really funny, but then also like one of those like, like cringe moments. Like, can you imagine if the AI actually did that? Yeah, there's another one where the man asked to talk, how he should speak better to his mom. And, it's giving him advice. And then at the end, it's like an ad to connect with older cougars, And it was very funny, but they're just like way off. It's a very satirical. It's a huge like parody of what an AI could do. I just don't actually think that ChatGPT or OpenAI would take it to that level. OpenAI basically has enough information about us that would actually serve us better ads. That's why they're going after the big brands directly in order to try to get those type of ads instead of like bottom of the barrel, like Taboola like ads, Right. So that's one thing. But the other thing that did stand out here was just how much Anthropic is calling out OpenAI because the ads all end with Dr. Dre, the difference between me and you, right? Like that song. Right. And it's really like, throwing that out at them, right? Jiya, would love your thoughts here. Did you see the ads? What did you think?
Oh yeah, I saw the ads. They were great, and I agree with all the points you said. But my favorite part about that is Anthropic used, like you said, the most satirical version of the ads, the ad offering that they could. But I think it's also really smart because for the general audience, like not you and I, who know how ads work and know like the prep that would have gone behind an announcement like that, this is their problem, right? Like they don't want to be served ads. So I think Anthropic really went to like, what would people really hate? And we're going to do that version of that ad. And I thought that was a really smart insight to add into that because it like plays well into like the fears of the AI being cringy or not knowing what you want. And I think ChatGPT and OpenAI is going to be smarter about it. It's going to be like really tailored, really customized. It may even ask, if they'd like to see like products and like slip it in that way. Like, would you like to see recommended products that could support you in your fitness journey?
Right.
Kind of build it more into the conversation,
Yeah.
That seems to be there.
Yeah, I think that was kind of like what really stood out to me was just the fact that it was so overt. You're spot on that the idea is going to be more like, hey, these are sponsored products that we're going to put into this to the conversation because it's like you're asking about this. Specifically for like, for the fitness one, say it was like for weight training, for, this, like for the therapist one, it's like maybe you want to talk to therapists in your area or maybe like coaches, that kind of stuff. And not necessarily like insulting your user, which is what I felt most of these like ads did. So this really brought to mind the Mac versus PC like ads from like the 90s where it's like you're calling out your competitor and like really putting them on the spot for what they're being lame about, how they're uncool, how they're not really for you the user. Like don't you see yourself more in us and like the type of company that we're trying to building that as like the moat that they're creating around themselves. And I think that that's kind of what I've seen from their previous ads of like how Claude and ChatGPT have really differentiated themselves in the past. Like ChatGPT has really wanted to be more like the general like Google, right? Where it's like we're the new like chat service. Exactly. Like, come to us when you want a recipe, come to us when you want, a new fitness plan, come to us when you want travel, like
Yep.
ideas.
Yep.
Whereas Anthropic and Claude have really focused on, don't you want to be like the cool, creative, like user that like uses the ethical AI,
Right.
and that like it's more of a thinking partner, and like it's not doing the job for you, it's like helping you achieve your goals,
Right.
and this really fits into that as well, where it's like, don't you want to be the type of user that doesn't have to like deal with ads,
Ads.
especially cringy, like corny ads, like
Mm-hmm.
um coming back to the them having to say like, oh, we revisit this approach if we need to. I really think they actually are gonna have to revisit this approach, just because ads make the world go round. Sorry, that's just kind of the way things
That's
work
just
these days.
is, yeah.
Like, if you think about one of the major reasons why social media was completely overtaken by ads, is because nobody is willing to pay for a social
No,
media subscription
correct.
that would counteract the amount of ads that these companies need to, put in front of us to make
Yep.
up for the revenue that they need. Facebook has put out, feelers basically like, how much would people be willing to pay for a subscription to
Yeah.
Facebook? And people are like,
Yep.
nah, nothing. I want
Zero.
it free. The same way
Yeah.
it's been, especially because it's a horrible product. And look, you don't even give me
Yeah.
my friends that I can like, follow and stuff. Um,
Yeah.
so I really do think that they are going to have to do ads eventually. But what I think is really smart about this is that they're creating the type of brand that will bring in the type of advertisers that their users are really going to
Yeah.
appreciate, right?
Yeah.
Luxury creative brands that want to get in front
Hmm.
of the luxury creative, people that are their audience and their, ICP. Any thoughts on that, Gia?
Yeah, their statement was really interesting, but what I really latched onto was the word transparent, because I think that's how they
Hmm.
were trying to differentiate themselves from OpenAI, where they're kind of making it sound like, which, it kind of was that OpenAI was like, we're this great platform, blah, blah, blah. And then they were like, ads, and everyone was like, whoa, ads. Like, I didn't see that coming. And I think Anthropic knows that that's where they're going to go. Because, like you said, eventually there's going to have to be something that gives in that, like, brings in that revenue. And they're setting themselves up to not get that backlash in a way by, like,
Hmm.
releasing this now, adding that word transparent. So they're kind of inviting the user into the decision rather than springing it on them. So it feels more organic in a way and less, you know, like sprung on the users.
Yeah. Yes, we're transparently telling you that right now we're not going to do
Yes.
ads, but that
Yeah,
we reserve the
exactly.
right to eventually do it.
But we told you, so we're the
There's
good
also the
guys.
Exactly. There's also the meta irony of Super Bowl ads being the way that they are telling
Oh
you that
yeah,
they are not
isn't
going to
that
do
funny?
ads, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So we'll see if people actually call them out on that, or just kind of just say like, oh, this is a great way for them to announce that they were going to do this. Or maybe I
Yeah,
respect the fact that you're paying $7 million to tell me that you're
yeah,
not going to give me ads for
yeah.
now, you know?
Yeah, I
Um,
think they're gonna get a good number of eyeballs on it because it's kind of ballsy and it's fun, and I think it's gonna
yeah.
be talked about. In depth, sure, but I think it's just gonna be like talked about, and I think that's what they're getting out of it is just the eyeballs of all these people who are gonna think it's cringy and funny. So it's smart.
Yeah. I also want to highlight another huge
Oh,
brand competition that is happening. It was the Pepsi ad that's essentially calling out Coca-Cola by
mm-hmm.
using a couple things, right? They used the famous Coca-Cola polar bear in their ad. They did not use AI to make this video, which I
Nope.
thought was a huge like call out to Coca-Cola. It's even making me question whether I
Mm-hmm.
will become a Pepsi drinker, just to kind of
Maybe.
jump on the train of like craft and like storytelling and stuff. But I
Mm-hmm.
also wanted to highlight that they called out to another famous moment that happened this year, which was the Coldplay cheating controversy,
That was good. That was really
by
funny.
yeah, including that in the ad, which was hilarious. Um, and I think it was one of those things where it made me realize just how much of the monoculture revolves around that incident, and
Yep.
how much everyone kind of like knows it, because now they can reference that in a commercial
Yep.
and have people like instantly, know what they're talking about and referencing, but then also like use that as a moment to connect with like your audience, saying like, hey, we just like you experienced this. We thought it was funny.
Yep.
Look how we're using it. The storytelling that was happening in the ad was like, that the polar bear is questioning his like identity,
Yep.
where it's like he's not in on like the AI, like he's going to the therapist for it, and then he gets caught on the camera like, oh, you're drinking Pepsi,
Yeah.
what? So I thought it was
Wild.
like really great,
Yeah.
really great way of showing like, oh, he's cheating on Coca-Cola with Pepsi, right? So it was a good way to kind of
Right.
infuse the moment of like referencing the cheating with this huge like
Yep.
moment that everybody knows, and like keep the arc of the storytelling like in place for like the ad itself.
I I loved it, and I thought that referencing, like, the infamous Coke ad for all its AI and stuff, like, that they dealt with it with humor. Even if you're, like, not, like, a huge Pepsi fan or Pepsi drinker, I think you would watch that ad and laugh. I
Mhm.
also think that they're bringing back, like, the original challenge, that blind taste
That's
test of the
right.
Pepsi and the Coke.
Mhm.
I think it's a smart move, and, all of this competition that we just talked about two different kind of categories that are doing the direct competitor call out thing, and I think
Mhm.
that's really fun because it's like otherwise everything kind of blends together. This gets audiences
Mhm.
invested in like a team or a side or have an opinion versus just
Mhm.
watching like a happy commercial about something. So I thought that was a good play on their part.
Yeah, so that's actually one of my lessons to be learned for this segment, which is that using your competitors' decisions are opportunities
Hmm.
for you to mark your positioning as well, right? So
Right.
OpenAI announcing that they're doing ads handed Anthropic this like wedge issue of like
Right.
which AI do you want to use? The one that's going to put
Yep.
ads in front of you, or the one that's not going to do that?
Yep.
Um, And then do you want the Coke company that is going to use AI to give you a polar bear, or the one that's not going to give you AI for the polar bear? I thought it was also very smart because, and we'll talk about this later, but there are also
Yeah.
other soda companies, right? But by Pepsi, aligning itself to Coke, it's like, no, no, no. I'm up here with like, it's Coke and Pepsi, and
Yes.
then all the rest of the soda brands are
Everyone's
down
below.
here.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then that's similar thing happening with Anthropic. Anthropic's like, no, no, no. I'm playing with the big guy. That's
The big
OpenAI, right?
leagues.
Not with like the other AI services that are like down here. Like we don't even think about those. We're
No.
talking about AI, OpenAI, and that's
Yeah.
who we want to put ourselves next to. And then another one is that in crowded markets, your refusal to like do something, here are the ads, is a
Yeah.
positioning, right? Like it's making clear to your ICP, to your target consumer, that this is what we're not going to do.
Mm.
It's like that you're making yourself known as being the brand that's not going to have ads. So if this is what you're looking for, come to us. So it's a
Yeah.
interesting way of like not just saying they're not going to do it, but like being very vocal and staking that position to let people
Yeah.
know, like, hey, we're over here. We're not going to give you ads. The downside, though, of course, is that when they do have to like switch over, will they retain those same customers who
Yeah.
like came over to them because you weren't going to do ads?
Yeah.
So that'll be
That's
something we'll have to see in the future.
Yeah, we'll have to see how long people's memories are,
Yeah.
or how their brand recall works, because
Uh-huh.
maybe if they give it like a year, people won't remember because it's like
Hmm.
rather than giving it a week. So I think that'll be interesting. And I see that both Anthropic and Pepsi were like, we don't want to be the runners up, right? We're
Hmm.
gonna try to break through and be like part of the market share. They want to like not be in that perception kind of purgatory of always being second. So I see the play here and I like it. I think
Yeah,
it's cool. I'm rooting
for
for the
sure.
underdogs.
I know, right?
Yeah.
It just depends. Are you going to start using Claude? Are you going to start drinking Pepsi?
I'm a Claude girly. So I
Okay.
like Claude because I kind of like the research, the creative angle. It doesn't like do everything for me.
See,
So
they
I think
get
it's
you.
yeah. So I'm already on the Claude team Claude here.